Okay, hi. Woohoo!
Oh, hello.
You can start. Okay.
Oh, I'm starting. Okay, hang on.
Come on.
Okay, hello. We are here, the land gardeners, we're back. And so I'm Henrietta Courtauld, over from England.
And I'm Bridget Elworthy, who is a Kiwi but has been in England for the last 30 years. And we are really delighted to be here today to talk to you about how to use creativity to solve sort of tricky problems, or how do you communicate tricky things. And we have got two wonderful New Zealand women from Wellington here. We've got Zoë Bell, who is an artist from Wellington, and Hanna Breurkes, who is a amazing designer and also a science researcher. So they're going to tell you how they are dealing with creatively, how they're dealing with big issues.
Okay, now, the land gardeners. We are gardeners. We are garden designers. We have quite recently become art curators, and we're educators, and no doubt next time we come over will be something else.
Yeah.
So we're going to tell you a bit about that journey, but really focusing on something that's really important to us is how do we communicate the wonder of soil, the importance of soil, to a wide audience so that people really change their behaviour. And something that's really important to us, you will see throughout our work, is beauty and inspiration and trying to lure people and attract people and uplift. We've had a lot about elevating people up into this wonderful sphere of wonder about the soil so that they change behaviour. So
for those of you that weren't here yesterday, we explained briefly that we began our work together as growers and gardeners. We ran an organic cut flower business in Oxfordshire, but actually that was really a front. It was a front to the fact that we, behind the scenes, were working away, trying to find ways to heal soil. But the thing is, what we realised was that flowers have this incredible power. Beauty has incredible power. And what happened is we are technologically challenged, but one of our children put us on Instagram and, told us to take pictures of flowers, which we did. And then before we knew it, we had this sort of crazy following. We didn't even know how to interact with this following. We didn't even particularly want to, but we just had this following.
But that is the thing. If anyone communicated with us in the first 5 years, I'm really sorry, but we didn't know that people sent us messages and you could reply back. So really sorry. We were, yeah.
But anyway, so we basically suddenly, and it was sort of not really intentional because we did love flowers and it was a commercial thing. We were selling them into London. But actually what ended up happening is people got really fascinated by what we were doing because they loved the flowers. So we lured them in, and what we started doing is holding lots of workshops. So we used the education and workshops to try and explain to people what we were doing to heal the soil. So they thought they were coming for flowers, but actually within 10 minutes of showing them some pretty flowers, we were like, but this is what you need to do with your soil.
Yes, because you can't have these flowers unless you think of your soils. You can't have nutritious, healthy, delicious food unless you're looking after your soil. So, yeah, they were trapped audience, basically. And so we lured them in and then socked them with the science.
But I have to say, there's also the creative tool of pillow talk. Because what we did is we had all these lovely ladies coming in. A lot of them had lovely big estates in England. And funnily, what happened is we started really talking to them about soil and what are they doing on their estates. And then they went home. And of course, pillow talk is very powerful. So don't ever think that your partner isn't really listening because, you have a lot of persuasive power. And, we then started getting quite a lot of farms and estates coming to us to ask how could they start rethinking their soils. And I'm not sure if Tim Williams is here. Yes, he is, over there. So, of course, these estates started coming in, and we're thinking, gosh, we're not farmers. Tim, help us. So then we would say, well, look, Tim can help you with soil on a farm level. We'll help on a garden scale. So, in a way, we had to think creatively. And in fact, pulling people in to this hub that we started creating in Oxfordshire. So we had people like...
we had Charles Dowding. Do you know of him? The great no-dig gardener in the UK. Yeah, he has brilliant educational videos, actually, if you're a market gardener.
And we did all this thing. We made people make compost, but then we gave them a really beautiful lunch. So use beauty. And what we're trying to do, pillow talk on beauty so far, and also you can have a front for something where you could sock people around the back.
And it actually sounds quite cynical, but actually we love the beauty too. I mean, beauty nourishes us too. So, and I think it is that thing of thinking about how do you... we also wanted to be a bit different. We didn't... When we do what we do, we are continually thinking... who else is doing it? There's no point us doing something that someone else is doing out there. There are brilliant people around the world doing things. And I suppose that was our key thing that we thought we could bring. We thought we could bring that element of beauty and inspiration.
And if you look at most farming and gardening advertisements, you can see, just add a bit of beauty to that, and it can absolutely change people's perception, and it also can widen your audience. Anyway, we decided to, then someone came to us actually and said, we want you to write a book about this. And of course we did write about the flowers, but all through the book we were writing about the soil and the soil and the soil and how to do it. So, we were getting our messages out, even though it was packaged up in a, pretty cover.
And I think the other thing is, at the same time our Instagram going out, that was really homespun. It still is. It's still both of us doing it, predominantly Bridget, because she's a really amazing photographer, but honestly it's always been us. We don't have someone that we employ, and hopefully that gives a more sort of personal feeling. And
the same goes for our website. We started doing a lot of things. We put on our website, we put information out there, case studies on farmers, growers, and we do it ourselves because it doesn't cost anything. Squarespace, all of you here could set up your own website tonight, and you just plug in pictures. It's really easy. So I think people can get very caught up on thinking, we need a whole infrastructure to do this.
Or it's got to be perfect. I don't think I need to say this to Kiwis, because you are just do it. I feel as a nation you just get on and do it and get it out there. But the English get very blocked, particularly about that, whereas we just literally just would fire out photos saying these are important to us and maybe someone else will like them. And maybe if they touch someone, that's worth it.
Okay, so then COVID came along. Okay, so we were doing these cut flowers, we were driving down to London, we were pulling people in for talks, then COVID came. So everything had to change a little bit. Obviously, all our flowers going into London stopped. But what happened, obviously, sometimes, often, these things, if there's a silver lining. And, where I was living in Oxfordshire, which is where we were based, you couldn't get to the supermarket. I mean, it was that thing that you thought was inconceivable, especially somewhere like England, which is so populated. There was no food for a bit. And so we started thinking, oh, my God, but we're growing all this food and we're doing all this trialling, and we had this walled garden. So we thought, okay, we've got to get food out to people. So we started offering food and flowers to people. And so also people were then started coming and picking up herbs and food in our courtyard, and then that led to this amazing sort of sense of community. I mean, suddenly I realised that next door there was an organic, dairy farmer, and then there was these organic meat growers up the road, and suddenly everywhere I looked. And I'd almost been blind to it. I'd been going to these specialists in London to get my food. And then I was thinking, actually, here I am living next door to farmers. And so that's when we began to thinking, come on, everyone, start connecting to who grows your food and try and find people in your neighbourhood and go directly. Some of those farmers had never thought about selling direct, but suddenly during COVID, people could because there was no food.
Just get really good coffee and good bread, and then you're away. That is the secret.
Well, that was when we got a farmer's market. So we did. So what we decided to do is, when COVID opened up a bit, we thought, okay, let's just do a farmer's market. And we looked up the rules and we thought, oh, I think we can comply with this. So on a Wednesday, we said, on Friday, we're doing a pop-up farmer's market. Now, something like a pop-up doesn't bind you to anything. So you can pop up and pop down. So any of you that have a glut of food at any point and you want to bring your community together, as Henrietta said, get a good coffee machine.
Honestly, then they'll come for miles.
And a good bread. Get good bread. We had to go quite a way to get good bread, but boy, exponentially, the people came from miles around and they connected. So no one was allowed to go inside, but in our courtyard, we had, I can't tell you, there was so many happy people. And I think this is something that all of you can do. You know, try and think, if you're a producer of some sort, how can you connect to your community? How can you create community? And be as creative as you like. Maybe you do a film screening in your barn one night. I mean, if you want to have any ideas, there's Tim and Claire over here. Tim's a Kiwi, Claire's from the UK, and they're doing all sorts of things over in the UK to try and raise people's awareness of food. And these sort of things you can just pop up and pop down. They don't need to be a noose, but try and think of things you could be doing.
So then the book. We're writers as well. That's another thing I didn't mention. So we really decided that, a bit like the cut flowers, we wanted to wrap up some of that information that we were learning about the soil, about this connection to the land in a book. And we just decided to publish it ourselves because actually we found it was really easy. We went to Dorset. We found a really local printer. He could do it very quickly. It was out within 3 months of us sending him the text and all of the pictures. And it was just that way of trying. It's not an in-depth study, but it was just a way of trying to spark people's imagination so that people might go, oh, this is an interesting book. Oh, what's it about? Oh, soil. So people who might otherwise not have really known about the soil would suddenly just have their ideas just started to be inspired.
So by casting the net wider, we wanted to once again have beauty and soil together. Soil's not just something you want to wash off your hands. And so we did that. And then, of course, Thames and Hudson, who'd produced our last book or published it, wanted to publish this, but not only in the UK, but in America and Australia and New Zealand. So once, just from a little spark that we did of doing our own book, they then took it out and distributed it far and wide. So, and obviously at that point we needed to put some international people in there. And brilliantly, some of you guys in the audience and at Groundswell are in there. So we didn't only talk about soil in the book, we also talked about food. Food is a bit like flowers. It lures people in. It's seductive.
Also, I think there's an energetic thing about flowers and food going out. It's like when we started to make our compost, it's like they take that message with them to people. And there was that feeling as these books were going out, food was going out, flowers was going out, that we were connecting to a wider audience.
And also in the book, we really wanted to highlight, in the English book, it was all the producers that we used. We wanted to say, guys, these are the guys we use. Find people in your space that you really rely on and that you cherish. And then, obviously, when we went around the world, we found lots of lovely producers in New Zealand and Australia, and we celebrated them. And then the other thing that we did, which we touched on yesterday, is we turned to the universities and the Soil Association and different bodies to work with them to look at doing scientific studies on how to feed the soil at scale and find solutions that then we would either through film or through books, we would give out to the wider world. So using things like, so we reached out to the academic community. But of course that all, as you all know, takes a lot of time. So in the meantime,
we thought, how will we get this message out to more people? And we just suddenly thought, what about an art exhibition? So we chose a gallery in London and we went to them with a proposal saying, look, soil is really important and all those reasons why you all know how important it is. And we did a presentation, we researched some art, and next thing we knew, they'd said yes. And then they said, and you too can curate it. So suddenly we were off on a new journey.
So we were like, no, we're gardeners. We're not going to do this. And they said, well, we don't understand about soil. And one thing that we did do, actually, which was sort of interesting, and we were very sure on this, we said, look, we want to talk about soil, Now, we want people to come out of the exhibition knowing that there's life under our feet. Now, a lot of people already know that, but we also want to talk about the fact of how is that life connected to everything on the earth. And that is so complex and so sophisticated. And we want people to realize, like, whatever I do to the soil, it's going to affect anything that grows in the soil, and it's going to affect me. And then we said, so a third under the soil, a third above the soil, and a third up in the cosmos. 200 years ago, no one would have done anything on their farm, plant a seed, move their cows, whatever it would be, without looking up. They'd look up and look where the moon is, where the planets are. A lot of that information has been lost. I mean, most of us don't know that. That's why it's so brilliant to come here and listen to the Maori woman this last 2 days talking about all their connections and their wider holistic connections to the earth.
And it was an incredible feeling, I have to say. We walked into this courtyard. I don't know if any of you have been to Somerset House Gallery in London, but flying above it was a big flag saying soil. And we just thought, oh my God, it's in the capital. And we had soil scientists coming, we had gardeners, we had growers. And I think that was what was so amazing about it, is it was totally intergenerational. We had the elderly, we had the young, we had the gardeners, we had, literally just such a wide range of people, and they were all touched by it. Now, honestly, it was, we couldn't quite believe it.
I think the really big bad moment was when we walked through a day before. We had no idea what we'd launched, and then suddenly walking through sort of maybe 30 rooms, there were about 120 people crawling all over the rooms, putting up lights, installing artworks, doing sound, and we looked at each other going, oh my God, this must be costing a fortune. What have we unleashed? I mean, maybe there's only 20 people that would want to come to an exhibition on soil. I mean, maybe people are going to be really... And so we thought, oh no, we're going to have to go into hiding. And I actually felt physically sick because I thought, how did we do this to these poor gallery? Anyway, the great thing is, and the most amazing thing is, and it's nothing to do with whether the show was good or not, do you know what? Over 50,000 people came to see it because they were... But not because of us, but because they were interested in soil. We had people crying in the show, like so excited that we were looking at soil from, all sorts of different angles, and it's something that's very... visceral to us.
And it is something we'd love to bring here, by the way. So if anyone's got any thoughts about that. Beside it is a public programme, so of talks, so that once people are fired up, and it's capturing their emotion, isn't it? It's getting in people's hearts so that they start to really feel strongly about something. And then we pair it with a public programme, rather like this, so that then they can learn more and think, oh, where do I start?
And so we'll just flip through. We basically were showing life under the ground. So what does it look like for these microorganisms that we don't see? But guess what? They're beautiful, most of them. Some of them are scary.
So there was an 8-metre high, incredible projection that you walked in. It felt like you were in a core of soil. That was actually real. It was real. It didn't need to be art because nature is so phenomenal.
And we paired a really amazing cinematographer who'd been doing time lapses of life under the soil, and you fell in and you felt like you were in a core, and you saw soil and you saw worms. You thought, oh, I recognise that. And then you went layer and layer and layer back as you went further into the soil. We even had sort of a biologist from, like the sort of top biologist from Paris come in, and he practically wept. He said, look, I'm a biologist and I haven't even seen this. So, he's looked at tiny parts of it, but he hadn't seen it as a whole.
So there was a wonderful... what we called our fungi chapel, which was totally dark, with this huge mushroom in it, where you saw the energy being pumped down through the mushroom and then out through the fungal networks to give people that idea of this incredible web of fungi.
We looked at fun, children and soil. There's a pure joy of soil. And then there's also the dark side where, plastics now are part of our soil geology. Physically, there are layers of soil that has plastic in it. So that's...
And it was actually a really easy way to bring companies in, even. This artwork shows this sort of really visually, these huge circles, which are commercial, industrial farming in Egypt, with these huge irrigation...
Centre pivots.
Yeah, centre pivots. And then around these tiny little strips of individual farms, which are actually just using the water from the Nile, totally sustainable. But it was a really beautiful way of giving a strong message. And we did even have Syngenta come in at one moment. And if we'd been, it was just very non-confrontational way of trying just to show this message.
And then, of course, we had a beautiful film from a Palestinian artist who was showing what Palestine looked like in the 30s before the switchover. It was literally the Garden of Eden. I mean, you literally wanted to weep, and it had some beautiful words from him overlaid. But that was showing, who owns soil, and who's fighting over soil. And then we also did a film with a filmmaker about the connection to land. Now, you don't have to have land to help soil, and that's another message we wanted to have out there. Even if you don't have a garden, even if you don't even have a pot or anything, you have to buy food. So you use your money to support people that are doing the right things by food, whether it's food, whether it's clothing. Everything you do actually affects soil. So once you start thinking like that, it empowers all of you to do something.
And then finally, we wanted people to leave with a feeling of hope, real optimism, because as we all know, there's this terrible anxiety about the world we're living in. So we created this huge globe, and on it we put all our soil heroes, and we've started to collect those. And there are people around the world who are doing really wonderful things with soil. And we had, of course, some from New Zealand, Simon Osborne, Greg Hart, and others. And actually, we've been gathering them, Fran, from underground, so gathering them even over the last couple of days so that we can really just celebrate you brilliant people who are really healing our soils and let people know of the wonderful things so that they left feeling this real feeling of hope, actually.
So anyway, I think once these two girls have had their told us about what they're up to, I think we're going to get you all into groups to think about what either you're doing creatively that elevates soil, or equally what you could do. So just a little heads up so you can think about it.
Okay, over to Hanna.
Hanna.
Welcome.
Just while we're doing the technical side of things, actually, I mean, one of the most creative things that we're all sitting in today is this incredible event that Fran organised. That's using creativity to look at complex problems, because within each tent and within each, meeting between people, there's all these ideas are being exchanged, and I think bravo to Underground. So I think we'd give. She's not here, but let's give her a jolly good thank you, because it's being filmed. Woohoo!
Kia ora. Can you guys see? Okay, great. Ko Hanna Breurkes, tōku ingoa. I am a designer, I'm a science communicator, I'm a researcher, and I live in Wellington, but I grew up in Ōtautahi in Hallsville, actually, so about an hour away from here. And I'm going to talk to you about some science communication and some design things that I've been doing, and then specifically about soil and my practice, which is embodied, and it's a real partnership with soil, I think. So I have done some collaborations with Te Pūnaha Matatini, which is a complex systems research centre. And over a period of a month, I meet with a scientist and a researcher once a week, help them write about 600 words, and then I do some illustrations to go along with it to uplift and add another layer of narrative to the piece to make it accessible. And I also help them the scientists and researchers, to write in accessible language without being reductive and without like diminishing the science and making it, a lack of information, I guess. It's about arming people with science and knowledge, really, and helping them to learn about their world. So I've done quite a few of these illustrations. This one is about emergence, which is a whole thing I won't get into. It's great for the researchers, and it's also really great for me to learn as well. And this is another science communication project that I have worked on. I've got the book here with me. It's a part of my honours research and my honours degree. It's an interactive book about Aotearoa's native invertebrates. Yep. Feel free to look through it. It's got flaps, it's got spirals that you can lift up, it's got French folded pages that you can look inside. And I guess the reason that I wanted to create it is to build awe and wonder for our natural environment. It creates like a deeper emotional connection, I find. And also it's reminiscent of my own experiences as a kid, lifting up a big rock and finding a worm underneath and the joy that I felt. So I wanted to recreate that. And I also designed the illustration style and the language I used specifically for the audience and the intentions that I had behind it as well. Oh, sorry. Thanks, guys. And now these projects together and my other research has led me to my master's research, which I am about 3 months away from finishing. So I'm getting to the crunch point. Thank you. So I've been researching about how colonisation and the globalisation of agriculture has led to this construction of a really human-centred narrative around soil. Because of that, nature is seen as something to be controlled, to be harnessed by us for our own purposes, to grow as many crops and resources as we possibly can, rather than seeing soil as a living community itself. But as many of you guys will know, soil is a taonga. It has whakapapa, it has mana, and it's everywhere. And it's relevant to everyone, it's relevant to all of us and all life. It's in your backyard, under your fingernails, in the food we eat. We're part of the same food web as soil. We eat it every day, and we'll return to it again when we die. So soil is complex, it's wondrous, and it connects all life. My job in my master's is to think about how do I encourage care in soil, and people about soil. And so I've been learning about how attentiveness to soil is a really good first step into building that care. One of the first things I did in my research was build a series of commitments to soil and how to act. My research is very practice-led, it's participatory, it's interactive, and it's really about the process. So I wanted to make sure that I'm always acting with soil respectfully, I'm upholding the mana, I'm not harming it. So my commitments are thoughtful and protracted observation, which is a permaculture principle, avoiding extractive and exploitative approaches, and trying to balance hierarchy between me and soil as much as possible. I won't go into too much detail about these because of timing, but yes, let me just flip over my notes. So I first did a series of explorations to get to know soil, because I don't think I can research it and create something about soil without really knowing it first. So I looked through a microscope, I spent time with soil, and I also asked people what soil is to them. Then about 4 months into the research, I started thinking about other people's relationships with soil and what they're like. And I developed these things called attentive encounters, which there was a version of this morning. Zoe and I did a workshop at 7:30 a.m, so I don't blame you if you weren't there very early. But it was basically a series of instructions to to have a sensory encounter with soil and get to know soil at a really close level. These also had a reflection process, and people could reflect however they wanted, but these were some of the reflections that I received. I've been thinking about whether the soil here is happy or not. It feels devoid of any kind of organic matter. What can I do to bring it back to life? There was a sense of being connected and located in time and place, and the concept of time passing or proceeding was irrelevant. This was something I need not concern myself with. I felt whole and enough. I thought about how the soil grows the trees and holds the house that I live in and grows the vegetables I eat, but most of the time I'm a little afraid of it. Thinking of the dense area below supporting me, large and vast, who is on the other side? It's like having a conversation. Something I really love about this reflection is that it's very clearly two-way. Somebody was responding to the soil and they felt a response back to them. I wanted to capture soil speaking in this way and communicating and what we can learn from soil. And I wanted to capture its aliveness. So I started making cyanotypes. I've also got some of these here with me, but that started blowing around, so you're welcome to have a look through those as well. You can come up afterwards or pass them around or whatever's easier. And the intention behind these was to meet soil where it exists in a non-extractive process. I'm going to the soil. I'm not bringing it into a studio environment or anything like that. It's as much about the process of making in collaboration with soil as it is about the result. These cyanotypes reflect a moment or a day in time, and part of soil speaking and is also about the weather. And so this cyanotype, this is all the same cyanotype, but process images. The first one's before, the one underneath that is when I found it in the morning after really heavy rains. I'd left it out overnight, and then the third one is after I picked it up. The paper was torn, it was partially moved, it was partially buried. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. This one here is also the same print. The first one is directly after an 8-hour exposure. I can't remember if I explained what a cyanotype is. Did I do that? Oh, great. Okay, I'll rewind. So a cyanotype is a analog photographic medium that is light sensitive. So you basically combine two chemicals, you paint it onto a piece of paper or fabric or whatever, and then it will expose in the sunlight. So this is basically soil on top of the paper, and it's been exposed over a day or however long I left it out for. In full sun, it takes about 15 minutes, but these were in the bush, so I had to leave them out for a day or so. And I guess by paying attention to the sensory details in soil, we can get to know them on a level that we wouldn't get to know them with our regular human eyes. We can learn about their being beyond our everyday gaze. And they're also an exploration of slow creation and co-creation with soil partners. These ones that I'm showing you now, I made yesterday. Those of you who were here yesterday will know very well about that big muddy puddle that was out there. And I made these ones in that muddy puddle. And so these cyanotypes have really prompted my learning about soil time and how the pace of soil processes is very different to human speeds. What might seem painfully slow to us is actually very busy and profoundly alive. Soil doesn't operate on just one temporality, but it has billions of beings, all with their own speeds and processes, and it's all very alive. Oh, sorry, that's my last slide. I guess I also want to say that my master's is still in progress, and with a design master's, you hand in a piece of writing and a piece of design work or process. Unfortunately, it's quite structured in that way because it's a university and it's a colonial structure. But for my final design, I think what I'm going to do is make a series of really large cyanotypes, like probably bigger than me. I'm not all that tall, but bigger than me anyway. And hang them up on fabric, I think I'll make them on, because I want them to be really organic and be able to blow in the wind and such. And I would really love for them to be interactive as well, because I think that I can I can show my relationship with soil and how I see soil through these cyanotypes, but it's also about other people's relationships with soil as well. And yeah, so I don't know if that will be other people helping me make these cyanotypes, other people making them themselves, or if people will maybe weave something into them, like physically weaving a piece of fabric or something into them. But yeah, I'll see. And thank you. And now Zoe is going to come and talk to you about her design process. Thanks.
Do you want to use that one? Oh yeah, we'll just use the same one. Oh, okay. Kia ora. My name is Zoë Bell, and I am not the stunt woman. I am a creative and designer. Been in Porneke, Wellington for about 6 or so years now. Also studying my master's like Hanna. But yeah, I've been finished my master's for about a year now, and I've been really fortunate to be working within small scale kind of community projects in the city. And I get to kind of explore hidden ecological data that we may not always pay attention to, especially the public in the city. So yeah, I will introduce quickly my project Sound of the Underground, which was my final big thing. It was an immersive environment inside a shipping container on the Wellington waterfront. There's a festival called the Performance Arcade that happens at this time of the year, so it's next week, this year round. But last year, my work was inside a shipping container. It was a 260-degree projection, so all around you, and surround sound all around you of the sound of soil. So I'd kind of like to tell you a little bit about how I got here. I'm an urban girl, born and raised in Palmerston North. Don't say boo, it's all good. But yeah, I wanted to talk about a project that I did earlier on in my studies called Keitia Noho Me Ngā Laka. So this was my first immersive projection work, and it was a animation in the trees to symbolise the healing of rongo Māori, specifically with kawakawa. So this is projected onto kawakawa. And then I kind of went into my master's study thinking, oh my gosh, I want to dig deeper than just plants. And was looking at ecology sound. There's some recent research about plants producing sound as well, you might have heard of. But I discovered some research that had been done in 2023 by a dude called Jake M. Robinson, and he's written a couple of books now about microbial life and sounds. And he was working out of Nottingham Trent University and Flinders University, which is the UK and Australia. And they were doing some research about a term called ecoacoustics. Does anyone here know that soil makes sound? It's probably not surprising, but to me, finding this research about soil sound was mind-blowing. And the whole thing is that they were researching how there was a reforested or regenerated plot of land and one plot of land that had been deforested for about 15 years now, so it's kind of, the soil was quite dead, and they were looking at the soil samples of sound against each other, and obviously the regenerated spot made the most sound, but it was the first of its kind in the research area to prove that. And I'm still going, wait, soil makes sound? And I'm a designer, so I looked everywhere in Aotearoa for a scientist or an ecologist or a sound person that was recording sound of soil in, here, 2023. Couldn't find anything. And I was like, I really want to do something about this topic. And so I ordered a contact microphone of my own, borrowed an audio recorder, and kind of just went to work recording the sounds of soil. Didn't get very far at first. My recordings were really quiet, and I just was almost about to give up. When I was invited to a community project up the coast in Kuku, Horowhenua. This is on Dr. Huhana Smith's ancestral land. So this is Ngāti Tūkorohi region. And they have been, well, we have been working on this Kuku Biochar project, which is all about regenerating the Waikōkapu stream. But it's also an art project. So we had these hemp wool weed mats, painted them with tukutuku patterns, and laid them along the stream, and then planted a bunch of riparian native plants along there. And we thought, great, the project's finished up, the community, kind of subsided, and we came back the next season, and the celery weed, the blackberry, and the hornwort were just going wild in this space. And so we couldn't keep the weeds away. Now the animals were out of the paddock and we were trying to regrow plants. And so I had the idea of composting these weeds. And we went through this whole process of trying to figure out the best way of doing that. I won't get into that now. But I went back to my own home compost bin. And now that I knew a little bit more about the balance of carbon and nitrogen and what my microbes needed, I started to think about how I could put my energy into my compost bin so it would make more sound, it would be more alive, it would have more modi. And yeah, the sounds were awesome. So this was a shot from Sound of the Underground inside, and some microscopic video I'd taken of my compost samples. So I took them to Massey University in the Manawatu and put them under the microscope and recorded the lives visually. But the big thing was that the soundscape was kind of all around you. They say that some of the sound in the soil might be plant roots communicating to microbes that there's a carbon source nearby. There's some new research thinking about how microbes might be warning each other or giving each other signals for food. So there's lots of ideas on what's actually making sound underground. But I think it's maybe a place that we could never fathom what's really going on down there. The whole idea of my work and this immersive installation was to just share that soil makes sound in the simplest form to people that may not have noticed that it is alive. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So yeah, we wanted to bring it back to you all and think about what creative things you might be thinking about or wanting to propose to your communities or are doing. And if you could find a small group of people and turn around to each other, we'll give you about 5 minutes and then kind of come back and talk as a larger group about it.
Okay. Right. Here we go. We're coming into the first group. Who wants to be the speaker?
Hi. I just replayed a little bit of an experience with Zoe and Hannah this morning. I was at the, what do you call your sound experimentation?
Oh, it's like a soil encounter.
A soil encounter with sound, and I must admit I was very sceptical at first when we were handed headphones and what looked like a meat probe to put into the ground. And of course at first I couldn't hear anything, and then I think maybe Hannah had suggested maybe put it over in where the wildflowers were growing, and all of a sudden you could very clearly hear static sort of sounds or like raindrops sort of sounding, and then we tried different areas and my mind was completely blown, and I immediately went to work with children, and I just thought, oh my god, imagine taking this to kids and opening their world in terms of, you know, you can describe and show them pictures and things like that, but a sensory experience like that was very mind-blowing and quite emotional. I think what you did this morning was very lovely, how you gave everyone some centering exercises to become quite grounded and kind of get in touch with not just sound senses, but feeling, taste, smell, like awakening those senses before we listened to the soil. But yeah, I would love if there is any way that to access the equipment. Obviously is such an expensive part of the study, but I think opening that up to children would just be incredible. Yeah, it was just probably one of the highlights of the festival for me, so thank you.
We went a little bit off piste, but we did talk about soil. I've been working with soil for years, but I think I really love artistic practices that make us think about things in a different way. So I really liked your cyanotype experiment. I thought that was very interesting. And one of the things we were talking about is potentially, I don't know if you've heard of anthotypes, which is using plant material as the medium which catches the light. So you could do that with like beetroot or turmeric or something, and then bring it back to the soil full circle. But that was our main point of conversation. Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, one of the projects that I'm involved in is a little project funded by the Auckland Council called Future Ready Farms. So the idea of the project is to get farmers on board who want to transition or are already exploring regenerative. So getting those farmers into groups. So we call them pods. So no more than six farmers per pod, and the idea is to keep them communicating with each other in their pod to kind of get that snowball effect of farmers being involved and wanting to know more. So it's been a really successful project. Auckland Council's been fantastic. And Quorum Sense is managing it. So I answered a Quorum Sense. So it's been a really, really good project. So we're only 6 months into a 12-month project, so we're looking for funding for the next couple of years. So it's been a blast, and just hope it keeps going.
Can I just share something that I used to live in an apartment in Buenos Aires, and there's no recycling, or at least when I was living there. And I'm a recycling freak, so throwing my food scraps, my vegetables and the food scraps in the rubbish bin was heartbreaking. So I decided to do a little experiment in my balcony, and in a chalk bag, a plastic bag, I brought some cow shit with some worms, and I would chuck all my scraps there, and it never grew in size. I had then food for my house plants, and it's a pleasure of not having to throw something that you can recycle. So there's no excuse to no composting, in my opinion. Yeah.
Was there one more? Did we have time?
Thank you. A bit of an outside the box thinking, but the way that soil inspires nature and ecosystems is we could apply it to organisations and the way we collaborate with each other. and not in social systems. For instance, nature doesn't have a planning committee or a senior executive team that when there's no rain, you don't see two trees come together and say, when it does rain, you get this portion, you get this portion. Instead, like with soil, there's lots of natural hierarchies, obviously blended into their strengths, their passions and interests to thrive. What if we applied that to the way we work together in organisations and creating the right frameworks to unleash potential within people and allowing a purpose to actually guide the business? So, outside the box thinking, but what if we actually bring it to life in the way we collaborate as humanity?
Look at Merlin Sheldrake's website. He wrote Entangled Life and is the guru on fungi, but he has exactly that theory about. So I think you find it really interesting.
Perfect.
One more? Should we do one more?
Anyone in the back?
Kia ora, we're from Tairāwhiti and we did a art exhibition on community-led climate change research, and part of the bit that we did in the art exhibition was all around soil. So we hosted a soil circle where we were right by the river where from Cyclone Gabrielle, a lot of the damage occurred and a lot of the soil from the land came off, and we took quotes from the research, had like this wizard kind of soil circle, I suppose. Had slash, so forestry slash is a fake fire, and passed these bits of research around to the circle that all talked about soil and sediment, and everyone reflected on that, read them out, and then talked about their experience with what they had in Cyclone Gabrielle and how the land was impacting them and their livelihoods, and then why we still have hope to be part of this community. And it was just really a lovely way to reflect on something terrible that happened and what that meant for us, but also in a way celebrating soil at the same time. So yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And I'm sorry we didn't get to hear all the creative ideas that you might have, but I think maybe if you could challenge yourselves to think of how could you do something, even something very small, to maybe either change yourselves or somebody else's view on soil. And yeah, I think that's a pretty good challenge. And always remember, beauty often really moves people. So if in doubt, do something beautiful. And as somebody else said yesterday, I think it was Greg, love and beauty, I think, could be a really good motivator for all of us. Anyway, thanks for coming.